Have you been dreaming about writing a book but feel stuck at the starting line? If you're tired of second guessing yourself, overwhelmed by the publishing process, or wondering if you will ever actually finish that book, I can help. From Dream to Debut is my coaching program designed to take you from idea to finished published book with clarity, confidence, and a plan that actually works. Enrollment is open now. Stop dreaming, start writing, and finally debut your book. Visit themotivationaleditor.com/from dream to debut enrollment to learn more. Okay, well, I am here today with a friend and no, I guess we're not co-authors because we haven't written books together, but friend and author Catherine Brakefield. And I'd like to start this conversation off with the fact that Catherine was my very first freelance editing client. And that was I think that was back in 2010.
15.
So
Yeah,
15 years ago.
yeah.
Is that what you recall?
I think so. I think you're right. Yeah, for sure. I know it was Wilted Dandelions that I first was introduced to Cross River Media. And then I did a short story too with Tamara, and you were one of my partners in it, that you liked the story. It was about Chassie and her foal. Remember that? And she loved this foal, but she wouldn't let her drink. So she was starving her baby, not knowing that, just because of a bad habit. So much like ourselves sometimes, So that's what started with that. And then I did Wilted Dandelions, a missionary group, and you were my editor. I
Yeah,
didn't know I was your first case.
yeah, you were my very first freelance editing client,
Uh-huh.
definitely. Because, I think you had, I think you had reached out to Tammy about Wind of Destiny. I'm not real sure. And I remember she said that she wanted to publish them, but it needed some editing work. And that's kind of where it started. And, she
Yeah.
said, "Are you interested?" And so then she gave you my contact information and you know, here we
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
15 years later, and I've
Yeah.
edited what, five of your books? Or let's see, no, there was
It's four,
four.
five, six.
Yeah, there's four in the Destiny series, and then Wilted Dandelions and
And Love's Final
Love's
Sunrise.
Final Sunrise. Yeah,
Hmm.
wow, wow.
Yeah, which is doing really great right now. People
Is
are
it?
really loving it. Yeah.
I
And
th-
I know Wind of Destiny had went out of print. Publish America was great because they put it traditional and they put it they didn't put a no refund. So it was refundable, and no one ever returned the books at Barnes and Noble. I was going Barnes and Noble, Order Bookhouse, all the way through, to the South, and it turned out really great. But then I talked to Tammy, and I said, I'd like to divide this book up. It was really a long book. And I wanted to bring out the Irish immigrants, the Irish part, which I didn't bring up in The Wind of Destiny.
mm.
So she said, okay, kind of like, gritting her teeth, thinking it's going to work out or not. But so I guess you got the job, huh, Deb? I broke up into four different books, and it turned out great. Yeah, people are loving that one too because it spans 100 years now,
Oh my
and it
goodness.
really shows, McConnell family all the way from the beginning when they first stepped foot on American soil all the way to the end of World War II. So it worked out great.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
it was super.
So
Yeah.
have you been a writer all your adult life, or when did you actually start writing?
Well, I was a reader. I never thought I could write. I didn't like school. I wanted to be outside. If I was sitting in a desk and they're telling me to write something, I was thinking about something else I wanted to write instead. I was a real free thinker and I couldn't even capture my own spirit, let alone have a teacher tell me what to do because I was thinking, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do this. So I didn't do well in school. I did better in college, I think, because I get to pick my own courses and I was paying for it. So that was a different kind of perspective. But yeah, and I thought I started writing in church papers, and I remember I would read a book. I thought that's not the way it should have ended, and I would rewrite the ending,
Oh,
full of all misspelling errors and everything else. But I loved it when I started working for Michigan Travel Magazine because I could go ahead and write it. And they have about three different editors to edit my book, edit my stuff. I didn't have to worry about it. And they loved my travel stuff, you know. And then I worked for some newspapers and I worked for Michigan History Magazine too. And so, yeah, it was pretty busy, you know, with all the articles. And I decided after I did Arcadia's books, they contacted me to do the Lapeer area, and then I did Eastern Lapeer area. They wanted something in Lapeer, and I said, you've got to have it all together because at the time there was no Lapeer. And back in the 1830s, it was all one big, you know, group was Lapeer, Hadley, Elba, and Metamora. They didn't have, you know, anything like they didn't have any roads, you know, because I got to know the people so much that I was doing editorials with, and they would tell me how they do markers, and they had all these pictures. So, yeah, they bought that book. It did really well. And then I decided I wanted happy endings, so I started writing these other books. My grandmother, she lived with me for 12 years, and she really inspired the four-book series, you know. Oh, we've lost something in the TV world because we don't have the imagery, you know, our imaginations like we did have. She was a walking history book and she could tell a story and you could actually see those gypsies traveling down the roads, you know. I mean, she had the gift of gab so well, you know. I think we miss that a lot. I do anyways, now that she's gone.
yeah. Huh.
Yeah, I really
So,
do. But you have an exciting history yourself, Deb. You started your first book with it was a true story, wasn't it?
yeah, my first book was definitely
Yeah,
true
it was a true
story. Yeah.
story. I
Um,
was really touched by your first book. Yeah. It was very good.
I didn't realize. Well, see, now I've published that book in two editions. The very first edition of it was published in 2007 under the title "Help, My Husband Has Sexually Abused My Daughter." And
Hmm.
then I published that with was self-published with Book Locker.
Uh-huh.
They were great, you know, did a really good job for me. But that contract, after it expired, after 5 years, I decided that I wanted to revamp the book, so I didn't renew
Yeah.
the contract. And Tammy wanted to pick it up, but she wanted me to broaden the audience. And I tried for over a year. I tried to rework that book
Yeah.
for a larger audience, and I just couldn't do it. And I came down to the point where I had to tell Tammy that I have to be true to the original audience. And she was okay with that. I doubled the size of the book, and then it was published under the title Carried by Grace.
Hmm.
So, and it still sells very well. I'm glad that it sells well, but at the same time, I'm not, because that means that there's people out there, you know, there's kids out there that are being abused and
Yeah.
moms that need this help. So I'm glad that my book is there to help them for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Amen. Oh, that was a very good. I really enjoyed that book. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Satan's always deceptive. You never really know what's in a person's mind, you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah,
It's
for
sad
sure.
sometimes to think about it.
Mhm. So did you always want to be a writer?
Um, I never thought I'd be good enough to be a writer. You know, I never thought that cause see, I mean, I can look at my book and my manuscript, anything I write, I don't see anything wrong with it. And then somebody else will see all these misspelled words or some kind of, you know, things that should be done, and I never saw it. So I thought, gee whiz, I don't have what it takes. But I had the stories, you know, and
Mhm.
the stories kind of buzz in your head. And sometimes I wouldn't be at a computer. I'd just still be doing my housework and taking care of things, and my story would keep going around. You know, okay, I know I'll put here, I'll put there, and then I follow up with history because I love history, I love facts, but I like to weave it around a good love story. Because you know what? God is the author of romance. He really is. He's your author of romance and love, you know. Take the Old Testament, boy, there's some good wingdings of some romance going on in those pages. And I just tell you the truth. So I think, well, he likes romance too. I might as well write a good one. Circled around the Lord because the way our kids nowadays are brought up, it's wrong. I mean, dating is dating, and I don't think they should don't ever let your dating field be your marriage field. You don't want to tangle the two. I'll never forget one Amish guy told me that we don't date anybody unless we want to marry them. With the potential of getting married. If you don't think you like him, then don't stop it right then and there, you know.
Yeah.
But you can't let that be your mission field. If he doesn't know the Lord, then you shouldn't be, associating with him. It's sad to say, but Jesus tells us in the Bible too that we can't afford to be unequally yoked. And I think that's where the problems stem from. We think we're going to change them when we get married, and that's not what happens.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, that's
Can't
the
change
truth of it.
anybody but ourselves.
No, that's exactly right. Happen. There's a lot of questions that I didn't know, and in fact, I didn't know for sure that my aunt, the one that's Cora, when Frank came back, and I suspected that it was they had got divided up because when her dad died, they needed her there. I didn't know, but then I did think that he probably came back with the other sister from Detroit because she had moved to Detroit, and she ended up marrying a terrible husband. And he brought her back, and sure enough, Granny said, "Yeah, that's the way it was." He came back, and they got married, and he took care of everything because the at that time the house had to be divided up. Their land did, and so Maggie got a child's portion, and they moved back to Detroit, where Uncle Frank had his business and everything. And that thing about I wrote about his wife giving the money to the border that she had to have a border there. It was a big German guy, and he would mark the bills to see if she was giving back his own money. That was a true story. Can't make that stuff up.
Hmm,
I'll tell you.
amazing.
And yeah, in Destiny of Heart, when I wrote about the bootleggers, that was a true story because I came across that in Eastern Lapeer County. It was a real bootlegger that was doing that and shipping everything up to Canada. But yeah, the way Kalina came back when Uncle Frank was all true too. It's just amazing. It's amazing how the Lord works in our lives. If we have faith as a grain of mustard seed, nothing is impossible because God can make it the impossible possible. And
Yeah.
that brought everybody together. My mother would always say, "What would have happened to us if Kalina, her name was Aunt Corey, really didn't come and take one more chance at love?" Because she was burnt out from her first husband. He left her when she had typhoid fever. She could have died there. And he took off with another gal. But see what would have happened if she hadn't taken a chance and with faith, and done this, and it all worked out. See how the Lord works. We got to give love another chance. We got to give God. We always never lose our faith in the Lord. That's the truth of it, all the way through it. So that was good. I was glad that the series got to be published in the way it should have been. And with mom and dad, I mean, too, oh my goodness, he went through. In fact, it was true about Monte Cassino. There was only 6 people that came off that hill that could walk, and he was one of them. But he said it was terrible. And along the side, he thought the logs were all bodies. It was so sad. And the
Wow.
Gurkhas went in there and lost all the territory that they took. They were ready to go in there when suddenly they were called off again. You won't hear that in the history books, but they decided, oh no, we got to go. But they thought at the time that they had an easy victory because of what the Americans did. So the British went in. The trouble was they didn't. And after all those months of work, they sent in the planes to bomb that Monte Cassino because they were trying to keep it together. The Americans did, and the British bombed it. And what happened? There was coliseums underneath it from years ago, when probably when the Romans were there or something. So they had those tunnels, so they couldn't even get to them anyways. They bombed it for nothing. They
Hmm.
were still in there, going in and out of it. It was kind of funny. That is in history books now, though. You can check that out yourself. So it didn't do any good. Anyway, that was funny. And then the same thing when he came out, they had didn't have much time to even get cleaned up until they were all back out again to Anzio. It was really amazing. It was over 150 days of no breaks, that they kept going and going and going. But it was good. Tells you American willpower. They can do anything. They got pretty strong though in the end.
Yeah.
Dad said they were pretty smelly when the wax came to dance with them. They didn't want to dance with him. They wanted to dance with the clean pilots. That was funny. It was so, and then his captain, I wrote about that too. His captain going back in because the wax weren't going to come and go there, and going up to their place where they were. So you get over here and take care of my men. They've been working. They've been going for 100 days now. So that's when they came over. Oh my goodness, that was amazing.
I
That
think
was
that
something else too.
that book out of the four, I think, is my favorite. And maybe it's just because I'm kind of a fan of World War II. I've always enjoyed studying about that. And maybe it's part of the military, that's in
Well,
me,
it's
having
my
stood.
favorite too, I think. I think mainly because of the fact that I met some of the 34th Regiment. Now, no one from my dad's rifle. There was one man, and he was in a wheelchair, and he was pretty um kind of pretty sad. He just kept whimpering every time I mentioned anything, so he couldn't talk. But my dad, who was right there with him, I don't know how he survived. All I can think, Deb, is that he had such a strong faith in God. He said it was their time to go. As we kept saying, it was their time to go. Don't worry about it. When it's my time, I'm going to go. And I think that's the reason. I think his faith was so strong. He believed totally in the Lord because what they went through all this barbed wire and everything else, they could have been killed anytime. And they just said it's their time to go. That's the way he did. And in fact, he told the Lord, I don't want to die in the bed. He told me, I don't want to die in the bed like your mom did. I want to die on my feet. So what happened? He had Parkinson's disease, and he just got back from the doctor's office, and he was, we were worried about him then. He got up and said, "Okay, I'm going to go home." Told my sister. She said, "Well, you are home, Dad." She says, "No, I'm going home. Goodbye." And he died, dropped dead right then. And that was the same month and the same day my mother did 6 years before. That's a God thing. That was a proof that what he believed and the faith that we have, that was true. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
The same January 6th, the same month and the same day.
Wow.
Only God could do that. And he said, I'm going home. They thought he was supposed to get dementia or from this, from this stuff he was taking for his Parkinson. But he always remembered our names. He never, I mean, gosh, was he strong? So was my mother, my grandmother. I hope I have that brain. But man, they remember facts and truth. Nothing changed their brain. They remembered everything. They know who you were, they know where they were, everything. But that's when he dropped dead, and that was it. And we couldn't believe it. You're kidding me, but it was the same time. It's a God thing because we tried so hard to do what the Lord wanted us to do. And it got rough in the end there. I took care of my grandmother for 12 years. Mom we were trying to get her home to take care of her, but they stayed in Florida, and we had a visiting nurse, but we had to be there because the one woman, I wrote about that in my short story. She became elder abusive there, and taking advantage of both my mom and dad. So we had to go in there. So one of us were always there with them, for the 2 years that was later. So that got to be hard, even though Florida's nice, but you have your own life too. But dad would stay with me in the summertime. So that worked out good. So I got more notes for my book, which I didn't know I was going to have, but I plan ahead. Anyway, so that worked out better. But yeah, he was really cool. Honestly, it was just amazing. God works in mysterious ways, but he's still here.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining me today. Where can readers find your books?
Cross River Media Group, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, their webpage has all that. I know, I think Books A Million has them too now. I have to double check it again, but I know I saw quite a few up there. Yeah, they're pretty much, and yeah, get a copy of one of them. You're gonna love it. My last one, Love's Final Sunrise, is a suspense about the end of times, and people are really they say it's inspiring. They're not afraid anymore about the end because they get my book because they're afraid. That's why I wrote it, because they don't know what to expect and they're scared about it. I said, don't be frightened. God's got this, you know? So, I mean, I don't care when we go, but God says, "If for the elect's sake, I will shorten those days." So God's got our backs. Don't worry about it. Pick up that book. You're going to be enlightened about it. You're going to love it.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks for being here. Goodbye,
Thank you so
everybody.
much for having me.